Hi everyone, this is Cecil, and on today's Yellowstone podcast, I'm going to be discussing the most entertaining stretch of road in all of Yellowstone, and that is the stretch of road that runs between Old Faithful and the Lower Geyser Basin. Now, as is so often the case with these podcasts, I do suggest that you try and watch this on YouTube rather than listen to it on Spotify or Google Podcasts or wherever. And just go to YouTube, search for Yellowstone Tours, that'll bring up our channel, and you can find us over there. I'm going to be using two maps. One of them is a map you can find at our motel site, which is ysmotel.com/map. That's YS, short for Yellowstone, motel.com/map. And the other one is at Google Maps. I've mentioned before that the roads through Yellowstone make up a massive figure of eight. This huge, gigantic figure of eight, and there's a road that runs between Lower Geyser Basin and Canyon Village, which divides this massive figure of eight into two loops, what tour companies like ours call the Upper Loop and the Lower Loop. And the stretch of road I'm going to be dealing with today is on the southwest corner of the Lower Loop. It's from Old Faithful, which is located where the Upper Geyser Basin is, to the Lower Geyser Basin. Okay, so why is this stretch of road so entertaining? The reason is that this is where so many of Yellowstone's unbelievable thermal features are located. Thermal feature? What is that? Well, there's four different sorts of thermal features in Yellowstone. There's geysers and hot springs, which I'm sure we've all heard of, and then there's two others, mud pots and fumaroles. Now, I'm not going to explain what those are in this podcast, but I do have other podcasts and virtual Yellowstone tours where I do explain what they are. Just trust me when I tell you, you're going to see a bunch of them on this trip. So, as I mentioned before, we're going to start at Old Faithful. And once again, Old Faithful is located in something called the Upper Geyser Basin. And the Upper Geyser Basin is an area where there are just so many thermal features, so many geysers and hot springs. As I've mentioned in other podcasts and virtual Yellowstone tours, about almost half of the world's geysers and other thermal features are located in Yellowstone. And there are at least 150 geysers, not to mention hot springs, in this 1 square mile area, this 2.6 square kilometer area, which is known as the Upper Geyser Basin. I'm not going to go through that because I have gone through that in a lot of detail in other podcasts and virtual Yellowstone tours, but you'll jump in your vehicle, you'll leave Old Faithful, and you'll get onto the Grand Loop Road. Now remember, the Grand Loop Road is the road that runs all the way around these two massive circles that make up this huge figure of eight from which Yellowstone is comprised. So once again, we're in the southwest corner. We're going to get into our vehicle. We're going to leave Old Faithful, get onto the Grand Loop Road, which you can see in this yellow color over here. And as you drive out of the Upper Geyser Basin, you are going to see some points of interest. You will come across on your right as you're leaving Castle Geyser. Now, Castle Geyser, and we can see it over here, Castle Geyser is one of only 5 geysers in the Upper Geyser Basin and one of only 6 in all of Yellowstone which have their eruption times predicted. It's a big geyser. There's a lot of what's called sinter that's built up to make it into this wonderful cone geyser. And one of the reasons I'm using the satellite map is so we can see where these white areas are. And these white areas show us where the sinter is. And sinter is a mineral that gets brought up from underground. So when we see the white or pale areas, we know that there either is a thermal feature there or there used to be a thermal feature there. So once again, we'll leave the Upper Geyser Basin, and the first main point of interest that we're going to come to is Black Sand Basin. There's a turnoff, as you can see, to Black Sand Basin right next to the road, and there are some great pools over here. There's Emerald Pool, which you can see there. In fact, this area used to be called Emerald Pool Basin years and years and years ago, before it got its new name, Black Sand Basin. And just have a look for our virtual Yellowstone tour on Black Sand Basin. I explain why it has its name, Black Sand Basin. But then in addition, Rainbow Pool and Sunset Lake are really stunning pools. And don't forget this area over here, which is right next to the road. If you do have time, just take a stroll back, watch out for the cars, and there are some great, wonderfully colored thermal features there as well. So let's continue driving then in a more or less northerly direction, and we'll notice all the center that is all around. And as we continue driving, we're going to come to Biscuit Basin, which is on the left or the west of the road. But in addition to that, there are a couple of very interesting trails over here. And the one is the Continental Divide Trail. Now, where we see the Continental Divide Trail crossing over the Grand Loop Road, you'll see that there's a little parking lot there. And this over here is a trail that will lead us to the Daisy group of geysers. Now, Daisy is another one of the 5 geysers in the Upper Geyser Basin, which has its eruption time predicted. And you won't see that many thermal features along this trail, but it's still pretty. It follows the Firehole River. And one thing, guys, if you do intend getting out of the really built-up areas, the really crowded areas, make sure that you have bear spray with you. You never know when you may come across a bear, and leave yourself open to a bear attack. Now, this site here, YellowstoneBearSprayRentals.com, is one of our sites. I need to tell you that in full disclosure. We're based in West Yellowstone. You can order bear spray from us. You can also order it from the likes of Amazon and Walmart if you'd prefer to buy it. But remember, you're not allowed to take it on an airplane. And if you do try and buy it in West Yellowstone or one of the other gateway cities, you're going to find that it's pretty expensive. So I was telling you then that there is this Continental Divide Trail at Daisy Geyser, and that'll take you back into the Upper Geyser Basin towards the Daisy group of geysers, including Daisy Geyser. And then across the road, you'll see the Continental Divide Trail carrying on. This unfortunately doesn't have a name. There's no name sign on it the way that there is for Daisy Geyser. But just remember, when you see Daisy Geyser on the other side, there's a delightful little trail. And this trail, if you're into hiking, leads us to Mystic Falls, amongst other places. It also comes to the tail ends, the backside of Biscuit Basin. So this is where you would pick up the rest of the Continental Divide Trail, which will lead you out to Mystic Falls. Or when you come to Biscuit Basin, and this is another really cool basin, check out Sapphire Pool here. It's one of the most stunning sites in all of Yellowstone. And there's also some other great thermal features there as well. But Sapphire, for me, is really stunning. These bacteria mats that you see over here that run off Sapphire Pool, and don't worry about what a bacteria mat is now, they're just these really, really, really colorful streams of water. It used to be my favorite bacteria mat in all of Yellowstone, and then I discovered the ones coming off Imperial Geyser, so now it's my second favorite, but still, it's well worth a look. I think I should mention to you at this stage that there are actually 3 main geyser basins in this part of Yellowstone. You've got the Upper Geyser Basin, you've got the Midway Geyser Basin, and you've got the Lower Geyser Basin. So those are the 3 big ones. But there's also Black Sand Basin, which I've mentioned to you, and Biscuit Basin, which is what I'm talking about now as well. So park your car in the Biscuit Basin parking lot, take the trail in. You'll see there's a trail that walks all around, and then when you get to the tail end of it, if you did want to go to Mystic Falls, just continue on until you run into the Continental Divide Trail, and it's pretty well signposted, and you shouldn't miss it. Then please take a look at this. If you're into hiking, have a look on the other side of Biscuit Basin. You'll see the Artemisia Trailhead. What's really cool about the Artemisia Trailhead is, number one, there's a lot of thermal features along this trail. particularly Artemisia Geyser itself. Now, you're unlikely to see it erupt. You'd have to be very, very lucky. But if we go back into the Upper Geyser Basin, guess what, guys? This trail on the other side, and there's Artemisia Geyser, this trail on the other side actually comes out at morning glory. So it comes out at one of the most stunning parts of all of Yellowstone, if not one of the most stunning parts of the entire world. Once again, make sure that you do take bear spray with you. Now, I'm talking about these various hikes that you can take. We also have a hiking site, and obviously a hiking division as well, YellowstoneDayHikes.com. And here's the Artemisia Trail, this time from Old Faithful. And here's the Daisy Geyser Trail. Just click on these, it'll take you to YouTube, and you can see a full video of the various hikes. That's YellowstoneDayHikes.com. So I was telling you about the Artemisia trailhead. Consider taking that if you have sufficient time. We'll then continue in a general northerly direction. And I'm sorry that this map is taking a little while to refresh. My internet is not that great where I am at the moment. But the road picks up the Firehole River, and then after a little while, we're going to, oh boy, this is really bad at the moment, isn't it? We're going to come to the Fairy Falls Trail parking lot. Now, the Fairy Falls Trail parking lot you're going to find is going to be jam-packed. It's one of the most popular trailhead parking lots in all of Yellowstone. Why is that? Because, as you can see, it's where the trail to Fairy Falls is. But not only the trail to Fairy Falls, but also to the Grand Prismatic Spring overlook. If you ever wondered where do those really, really cool pictures of Grand Prismatic Spring from up high come from, well, you just take the hike up to the Grand Prismatic Spring overlook. And once again, if you wanted to do that by yourself, obviously you can watch one of our videos. If not, go to our site, YellowstoneDayHikes.com, click on the hike, it'll take you to the page, and you'll see that there's two videos. There's a highlights video, and there is a full video. And I've just got it loaded over here. This is the sort of tail end of it as you climb up to the viewing platform. In the old days, actually, we used to climb all the way up the hill, but then a few years ago, the National Park Service put in this really great trail that leads up to the platform. So that's Grand Prismatic Spring. That's Excelsior Geyser Crater in the background. And I'm sorry that I've panned away, but the road that you can now see coming into view again, that is the Grand Loop Road. Anyway, let's get out of that. So I was telling you why this is such a popular parking lot. It leads to Fairy Falls, as I mentioned, and Fairy Falls is the most popular, what we call front country hike. Front country to be distinguished from back country. And I explain that in various of these other podcasts and virtual Yellowstone tours, or just go on Google and search for it. But it's the most popular front country hike. And there's also an extension to it that you can take, which takes you to Imperial Geyser, which to me is the best part of the hike. And you can find that in our virtual Yellowstone tour channel. So we'll come to then the Midway Geyser Basin. Oh, I was talking about the Fairy Falls Trail parking lot, excuse me. So you can take the trail to Fairy Falls. It's flat. Once again, take bear spray with you. I think it was last year, 2020. A woman was actually attacked on this very trail, which is pretty highly trafficked. And she was attacked by a grizzly. Fortunately, she wasn't killed. So take your bear spray with you. So on this trail, once again, we can go to the Fairy Falls itself, we can go to the Grand Prismatic Spring overlook, and if we continue on along this trail that we see over here, after the turnoff to Fairy Falls, we will find ourselves at Fountain Flats Drive, which is not quite as popular. We'll then come to the Midway Geyser Basin itself. This is obviously a must-see. You'll see there is a parking lot. Now, guys, if there's one piece of advice that you take away from this podcast, it must be the following. You have to get to the Lower Geyser Basin and the Midway Geyser Basin early in the morning. The crowds during the summers are just insane, and as you can see, the parking lot is so small. The Park Service has put little barricades up here to stop people parking on the roads, though you can park a little bit before and a little bit after the Midway Geyser Basin. But if you get there during the day when it's crowded, it's going to spoil your experience. There will be a line of cars going back in both directions. This place will be so crowded. What we do on our tours, and you can see our tours at yellowstonetours.net. That's yellowstonetours.net, and we run literally more Yellowstone tours than anyone in the world, literally, than anyone in the entire world. What we do in our tours is we leave West Yellowstone at 5:45 a.m. So we can get to particularly the Lower Geyser Basin and the Midway Geyser Basin before all the crowds get there. If we leave later in the day, sometimes we can't even get in. Sometimes the Park Service has shut down the entry into the parking lot. And at other times, we have to drop our guests off over here, and they have to walk in themselves. So the experience is really spoiled. Let's now continue along on the Grand Loop Road. Firehole Lake Drive is one of Yellowstone's best kept secrets. You'll find Firehole Lake Drive before you get to the Lower Geyser Basin. What I really like to do is take my bicycle, because this road is not particularly highly trafficked. And incidentally, I hate to ride. I don't know why anybody would ride their bike on the Grand Loop Road. The roads are so narrow, there's no shoulder, there's so much to look at. It can be so dangerous because people are looking at other stuff. Anyway, as I say, I like to take my bicycle in, and there's all these what I like to call micro thermal features, these micro features. I don't know if that's a proper scientific word, but that's what I call them. And you'll see them on the left-hand side of the road as you're driving along, and it's one way, or the north side of the road. And just pull over, like you can see this area of Greater Cinta over here. I bet you that's one of them. Firehole Spring is another great one. Surprise Pool as well. My goodness, you stand at Surprise Pool and you get surprised by these bubbles of water that come up from underground, occasionally breaking the surface. It's such a cool sight. Then you get to Great Fountain Geyser. I mentioned that there's 6 geysers in Yellowstone which have their eruption times predicted. 5 are in the Upper Geyser Basin. The only one that's outside the Upper Geyser Basin which has its eruption time predicted is Great Fountain. Now, you may have to wait a long time to watch it erupt. The window can be 3 hours either side, so that's 6 hours that you may have to wait. But if you do have the opportunity, it's well worth it, and I do have a video in our Virtual Yellowstone Tours channel on YouTube, which once again you can find at by going to YouTube and searching for Virtual Yellowstone Tours, or you can go to virtualyellowstonetours.com. That's virtualyellowstonetours.com. We'll continue driving along the road, and then we get to one of my favorite geysers in all of Yellowstone. I don't really know why it's one of my favorites. It is a cone geyser. There's broadly speaking, there's 2 different sorts of geysers. Fountain geysers, and then cone geysers, and White Dome is a cone. And I just love it. It's so pretty and beautiful and peaceful and serene, and there's this really cool, relatively thin jet or stream of water that comes out from White Dome. It used to erupt every 15 to 20 minutes, only perhaps 3 years ago. But now, for reasons I won't go into, the eruption times are out to, I don't know, maybe about an hour and a quarter. But while you're waiting, you're seeing these fields behind here. There are other thermal features which may erupt or bubble over from time to time. I'm going to zoom out so you can see where this is. This is the Grand Loop Road again. Here's White Dome. We're going to carry on along Firehole Lake Drive. And there's various other geysers right next to the road. Google Maps isn't showing it, but there's one there called Pink Cone Geyser. I beg your pardon. They called it Pink Geyser. I thought it was Pink Cone Geyser. But anyway, I've seen that one go off a few times, and that's another really cool geyser. We then get to a parking lot where you'll see Firehole Lake. And on both sides of Firehole Lake, you have boardwalks that go to thermal features. Now, one of the things you'll be told when you come to Yellowstone is that guys, stay on the boardwalks. Don't get off the boardwalks. And the reason is that the ground underneath or around the boardwalks is so thin. And you'll see why in this area over here. There's another little boardwalk that goes out, and just before you get there, look on the left or look on the south side, and you'll see how thin the ground is. So when people are idiotic enough to get off the boardwalks and they walk onto the ground, there is such a strong possibility of plunging through to the thermal waters below and getting badly scalded. Now, Firehole Lake Drive comes out just opposite the Lower Geyser Basin parking lot. So remember, if you are coming the other way, if you're coming from Madison Junction or West Yellowstone, you can't turn, depending on which way you're coming, left in this case if you're coming down, or to the east. You can't turn here because it's one way going from west to east. So you'd have to travel back down a little bit. We'll then come to the Lower Geyser Basin. The Lower Geyser Basin is home to fountain paint pots. You recall I mentioned mud pots. So a paint pot is just a mud pot that has been stained by the bacteria. And there's also fumaroles up here as well. So you'll see fumaroles for the first time. They're not showing Clepsydra geyser, which is over here, that always erupts. So you're guaranteed to see a geyser erupt. Celestine Pool is a stunning little pool, and whatever this pool is over here is also really, really beautiful as well. Let's see if Google Maps, Silent Spring, I forgot all about that. So that then is the stretch of road from Old Faithful or the Upper Geyser Basin towards the Lower Geyser Basin. I hope you can see now why I say it is such a stunning part of Yellowstone, and for my money at least, the most entertaining part of all of Yellowstone. Please remember, if you're looking for lodging in the Yellowstone area, please check out our motel, which you can see at ysmotel.com / well, you don't need the / just ysmotel.com, and you can order, if this internet ever refreshes, you can order your West Yellowstone lodging over there. We have great rooms at affordable rates. We also offer Yellowstone day hikes, and you can see those at yellowstonedayhikes.com. If you're looking for a Yellowstone tour, please look at our site, yellowstonetours.net. That's yellowstonetours.net. Once again, we offer more Yellowstone tours literally than anybody else in the world, from major cities like Vegas, LA, San Francisco, and others, as well as the neighboring cities like Bozeman, Idaho Falls, West Yellowstone, Jackson, Wyoming. And then if you do want bear spray when you're in our area, please go to yellowstonebearsprayrentals.com. That's yellowstonebearsprayrentals.com. This is the motel site. You can check out all of our rooms. They all do have kitchens in them. So guys, once again, thank you for joining me on another one of these Yellowstone podcasts, and I hope you make it to Yellowstone someday.